Welcome to GameRomp Easy Mode, an easygoing podcast where we talk about games and try to keep a nice, chill, relaxed atmosphere. I'm here with my wife,
Deanna.
And I am David.
Oh boy.
We're talking video games, and specifically, I guess this week we'll talk about...
Oh yeah, I guess.
For Halloweeny time, I got her to play Silent Hill 2.
Oh boy.
It's one of my favorite games from the PS2 era, and, you know, one of those games that is pretty highly regarded by the community, I guess you could say.
I suppose. I mean, goodness knows we've watched enough video essays about this thing.
Well, I mean...
Which I think, personally, is probably why it didn't have as much of an impact on me as I suppose you. Because, oh my god, we've watched so many fucking videos about this.
That feels weird.
I'm sorry, it's just like, the thing is that because we've watched so many video essays about going into, like, the extreme details about this video game, that I wasn't going into it blind like you did back in 2001.
No, I mean, I know that's true. To be honest, like, I think there was a time when I was going to try to get you to play it long ago, where we tried to stream it or record it or something.
Oh, yeah, but that was, before modders fixed the control scheme or something?
I was using the same thing that you did. We just must have had it set up wrong or something.
Oh, okay. Well.
But I got to the point where I'm like, well, Deanna's probably never going to play this. So I kind of gave up on that idea and I just started watching whatever the hell I wanted to. But then when the remake came out and people were, giving it a lot of praise.
Obviously we had to play it, but like the old version. Older version, because not the oldest version.
Yeah, it's what we played was the enhanced edition, which is, I think...
Just slightly graphical enhancements, right?
No, there's a few differences.
Oh, okay.
I actually should have double-checked this, but I'm pretty sure one of the things they added was those bugs. I don't remember those in the original game.
Oh, that's fair. Did the bugs actually... Okay, just for context, I was playing in easy baby mode.
Yeah, you accidentally... Well, I don't know. I guess it wasn't an accident, but you selected beginner without realizing just how baby mode it was.
Yeah. But it does mean we kind of sped through the story and got it over with quickly. Yeah,
because like everything died in like one shot, basically.
Mm.
And they were so slow that like they barely ever attacked.
Yeah, even Pyramid Head was stupid easy.
But that's okay. We were playing mostly for the story anyways.
Yeah, and I think that's... Let's just say that's why I picked that mode. Because we were there for the story, not the action-adventure shit.
Mm. So yeah, the Enhanced Edition was, I think, it's the PC version of the Xbox version. But the PS2
original version?
Yeah, that's the original. Didn't have a few things. One of the things that they added that we didn't even bother playing through was Born from a Wish, which was Maria's DLC, where you could play as Maria.
Mm.
But we didn't look into that, and...
So that wasn't with the original PS2 version, or was it?
No, it wasn't. And back then, there was no DLC.
That's what I was assuming, but...
Yeah.
I mean, even back then, games on PC, it wasn't called DLC, but they were called expansion packs. I don't know if they did that for console stuff or not.
I don't know, actually, if there was any console expansions. It feels like back then, like, because everything was on a disc and you didn't download game data onto the consoles, yeah, you wouldn't have expansions. You just buy a new game altogether. That's why Monster Hunter is famously known for having, like, they'll come out with, like, Monster Hunter 2, and then they'll come out with, like, Monster Hunter 2 Frontier or something. I don't remember the exact titles. But they'll be, like, the same game with additional stuff.
Mm.
And Resident Evil did that, too, with Resident Evil 1, and then Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut. They're, like, two separate games.
Doesn't it kind of suck for console players, though?
Yeah.
They don't want to have to play through the game a second time.
It was just a different time.
That's fair.
Anyway, Silent Hill 2. So, finally got to play it because, yeah, the remake looks great, and a lot of people seem to like it, and a lot of old-timers who've played the original are kind of mixed on some things, but overall, I think it looks like it's a fine way to play the Silent Hill 2 game if you want to experience the story and the world and the town.
It's decent enough for the new generation coming into playing it.
But what I want to know is, as someone who didn't play the original, and I basically made you play the original PS2 version instead of this remake. How did that make you feel?
No, that's fine. I understand. Like, I mean, what's the new version? $60, $70?
It's $70.
Jesus. Okay. So I understand it from a monetary point of view. But also, I mean, it's not the super original. So the enhanced, okay, the added things, but also the graphics. It's not necessarily new graphics. It's just, what, sharpened or something?
No, it's just a higher resolution.
Okay, so the textures are different?
I think that... I'm not sure if the textures were updated. I'm pretty sure it's the same game, it's just in a higher resolution, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay. So either way, I don't mind older graphics, so if that was a concern at all. They did have enhanced control, I guess, which I didn't have to experience too much because, again, baby easy mode, so I didn't really have to fight anything.
Oh, you mean the not using tank controls?
Yes.
That was in the original as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was always an option. That's the weird thing too, because like in sometimes when you're walking around, like the camera will change perspectives.
Yeah, it was kind of tricky, and I don't know if tank controls would have made that easier or better.
That's why tank controls were a thing, even since like the Resident Evil days.
Oh, well, either way, I guess it was fine.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I mean, granted, again, you were playing easy mode, so
Yeah, that helped.
there was no real danger at any point. We finished the game with like 200 plus pistol bullets, and like you healed maybe twice in the entire game.
Yeah, I was about to take out a whole village with the supplies I had.
You had like James was like a walking hospital by the time you were done with the game with all the supplies he had.
Yeah, I don't know how he held on to everything. He should have at least had a backpack, but whatever.
It's interesting watching people play through the remake, and like they're struggling with ammo and like sometimes running low on health and having to decide, well, sometimes the best defense is an offense, and you know, using your bullets to, you know, keep yourself healthy, right? But we didn't have to experience that at all.
No.
This
really was just a run through to see the story.
I cannot express how surprised I was by how easy beginner mode was. Because, okay, there's normal, there's hard, there's easy, and then there's beginner.
This was like the equivalent of... Which game Assassin's Creed brought it in, like, story mode? It's basically that.
I think Witcher has that too.
Basically, or is it
like
tourist mode or something?
Like story mode, like just experience a story. But on the plus side, that didn't mean that like everything died faster, so we got through the game a lot faster. I think we beat the game in like 6 to 7 hours.
If that. I was almost thinking 5, but I wasn't really paying attention either.
Whereas the remake, for example, I think some people are clocking like 16 hours or more.
Damn, they really did buff it out, huh?
Not only do things just take longer to kill, but like they added a whole bunch of new stuff, which is one of the complaints I've seen from older players, that like you've taken this game that had great pacing and just padded it out a lot. So I can see how that is a downside to some people, but I mean,
I wonder how much, do you know how much it changes the story?
The story is pretty much the same, except there's a few added cutscenes.
Is that good or bad?
We saw one of them, which I guess we can talk about now since you're bringing it up. There's a new scene where you meet Angela in the park. By that, there's a nun statue.
Oh yeah, the praying lady statue.
Yeah, in the original game, I think you get a map from the hospital. This like, oh, you should go here to get a key or something because a patient had buried a key there.
Yeah.
But in the remake, when you get to that statue, you meet Angela, and there's a little scene, and I don't even remember what that scene shows because it's new and I've only seen it once.
The only thing I remember was that she ran off at the end because like she didn't want James to like touch her or something. Like he keeps trying to help her, but she's obviously traumatized and she just can't handle being near a man like that. So
yeah, so there are some new scenes. There's another new scene in the nightclub or bar.
Oh, yeah, with Maria.
With Maria, yeah, where she's like kind of teasing him about a strip hole, and then she pours him a drink. That does not happen in the original.
I don't think it really took away from the story in either cutscene, though, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they feel like fine additions. I think the remake did a really good job with the characters for the most part.
The only thing I'll say about the bar scene with Marie is that it's definitely got the Shining vibes to it. Because she's an image of his imagination. She's pouring him a drink like the bartender does for the guy in The Shining.
Maybe.
That's how I felt. I don't know. It's pretty much straight up that.
I mean,
the only difference is he's not imagining like a crowd around him.
Okay, I guess we can start talking about the story since you're bringing that kind of stuff up. We'll go for the original first, and we'll touch on like some of the differences that the remake does. Because we watched after we played through it, we watched some YouTube videos of the
cutscenes exclusively.
Yeah. So for those that don't know Silent Hill 2, this is going to be kind of spoilery. We're not gonna dance around spoilers. If you want to,
absolutely spoilers.
If you want to experience Silent Hill 2, and even if you think it's a scary sounding game, it's not. Did you feel too scared playing it?
I mean, aside from not having to worry about combat, no, not really. I wouldn't say there's jump scares. There's like spooky sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't count that as scary.
It's like an oppressive atmosphere sometimes, but for the most part, I don't think the game is trying to be. It's not Resident Evil. It's not Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a scary place, but it's not scary jump out to make you shit your pants scary.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this makes me feel uncomfortable kind of scary.
Yeah, but again, we played on the baby mode. When I played this originally, I played it on normal. And there are points of the game, especially like in the prison, where it's like, I'm terrified of having to deal with whatever's in here.
That was interesting. I, oddly enough, kind of liked the prison because of the sound.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because it's trying to scare you, thinking that something's in the prison, it's gonna get you, but it's on a completely separate level. It's never gonna touch you, or at least I never encountered anything.
I think the thing that we're mentioning actually doesn't exist in the game. It's just sounds and a clever way that the game is just like putting an enemy somewhere, or the static, so you think there's an enemy there, but it doesn't actually exist. But yeah.
But that's the thing that's what makes it scary. It's not scary because it's actually going to hurt you. It's scary because you think it's going to hurt you.
Yeah,
it's like fucking with your mind scary.
Yeah, and that's what Silent Hill likes to do. It likes to kind of just play with your mind more than actually, just do the easy thing of do the boo and scare you that way,
Yeah. And I think it's also trying to scare you via your mind because that's what's going on in James.
Yeah, that's true as well. Like,
you're being put through the same terror that he's going through.
Yeah, for Silent Hill 2, for sure, yeah. So, Silent Hill 2, we're going to spoil it. I mean, we already spoiled a little bit, but if you want to experience the game without spoilers, and how you have gotten to this point in,
we might have some young visitors somewhere.
Yeah, true.
Young listeners, sorry.
There are some people, there's some people that, like, don't know the spoilers, the big famous spoilers of Final Fantasy VII. And, stuff like that. So if you don't know the big spoilers of Silent Hill 2 and you want to experience it, you definitely should. You could either play the remake, or you can get the abandonware version for PC, which is,
much cheaper.
Yeah, and there's a way to make that play really well. Just, you can Google Enhanced Edition Silent Hill 2. You'll find it. Anyway, we're going to start talking spoilers, so come back later, or if you don't care and you just want to hear us chat about this and hang out, that's fine too. We're going to talk about the story. And
yeah, you be our guide through this whole thing, because I'll remember some bits and bobs here and there, but you're clearly the expert when it comes to Silent Hill 2, between the two of us.
Okay, yeah, I'm a real big fan, so I know the story pretty well. So the game starts, you're playing as James Sunderland, right? Mm-hmm. And he gets a letter from his wife.
Who's been dead for 3 years.
Yeah, and it's basically, hey, I wanted to go back to Silent Hill, because Silent Hill is actually supposed to be a vacation town. It looks like some peaceful vacation town in Maine. I don't know where it's set, but there's a lot of pine trees.
From the outside, it looks nice, but holy shit, this place is going to hell.
So James and his wife, Mary, have spent a lot of time in Silent Hill, in their vacation house and hotel. Not a vacation house, it was a hotel. And it's a pretty little...
quiet town.
Yeah, I almost said New England, but that's probably just me imagining it. I don't think it's confirmed where it's set. I mean, these are Japanese devs. They probably just saw some movies and thought, oh, this looks cool. Anyway, you get a letter from Mary, and she's like, hey, I wanted to go back to Silent Hill, but you never took me there. So I'm there now in our special place. Come find me. And he's like, well, my wife has been dead, so I don't know how I got this letter. Granted, if you got a letter like that or a message like that these days, you'd probably just think it's a scam.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is some Prince of Nigeria bullshit.
But this was back in, like, I think the game takes place in, like, the late 90s.
Although I will say, just as a quick aside, even in the 90s, there was that whole, like, oh, have this letter and send it to 10 friends. That's an old school thing that went through actual mail.
Actual mail, huh? I don't remember that.
This did not start with email, but I'll just say that.
Sorry, now I'm thinking I've never heard of that actually being a thing with physical mail, but I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it was kind of old school.
Anyway, so James is not in the mind of, like, this is a scam. He's in the mind of, like, what is going on. He's
desperate to see his wife, I think.
Yeah, that too, because, like, you know, when you're married, to any of the other people out there listening, like, it's crazy to imagine what your life would be like without your partner.
Yeah.
And James is just, I want to see my wife again. And I can feel for him there, because, like, holy cow.
Especially when you figure out stuff later.
So he goes to Silent Hill. The tunnel into town is, like, closed, so he has to park at some cliffside park and walk into town. You start the game when he's in the bathroom and he's looking at himself in the mirror. And
he especially in the original, but I guess it works in the remake too. The way he looks at himself in the mirror is like it feels like he's going through some kind of emotional breakdown. Like he's touching his face like he's trying to make sure he's real or something.
Yeah.
It feels very ethereal, I guess.
Yeah, it's like I love that scene. You can't see his eyes because of the lighting, and he's just, like, looking at the mirror, touching his face, and then he goes into it like, I got a letter from my wife, and he sounds, like, so confused. It's beautiful. The way they made this game for the PS2 is just crazy. Like, think of other PS2 games and what they look like.
I only had a couple of access.
Like, think of GTA
PS2.
3.
Yeah.
Like, the characters in that, right?
Yeah.
They were fine for their time, but, like, Silent Hill 2 just looked amazing.
Well, between the characters, but also how they did the cinematics.
Yeah, because some of them are just, like, they're pre-rendered cutscenes. And those are always the better ones, right? So this scene in the beginning is pre-rendered. And later on, we'll see some more that some scenes will switch back and forth, and that can be jarring. But anyway, James starts walking down into town, and he meets Angela. And Angela's, like, looking through the graveyard, and they have a little conversation. She's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't go to Silent Hill. The town's kind of weird, and it's dangerous. And James is like, I
don't care if it's dangerous. I'm just going in.
Yeah, and again, it's that feeling of, like...
He doesn't care about his own safety. He's there to find his wife.
Mm-hmm. So you go into Silent Hill, and it's this, well, big... I want to say it's a big town in the sense of, for, like, when you were playing this on a PS2, this felt like a big town. I guess nowadays, this is not, like, the biggest town you would find in a game, but it feels like a real mid-sized town, I guess. Maybe small town, downtown kind of place.
Yeah. If you're equating it to real life, I'd say this is probably a town of maybe a couple of hundred people at best.
Really?
Well, most of it takes place in, I guess you would count as a small downtown.
Yeah.
So it depends on, like, how big the suburbs, but you never see those.
Yeah.
As far as the midtown, there's, like, there's what, one grocery store at best?
Well, we don't get to see the whole town because despite getting a map that looks like, oh, there's a big town, a lot of it is blocked off.
That's true. You can't actually go, at least in the old version, you can't go into a lot of the actual quote-unquote stores.
Not only can you not go into, like, every store, but some of the streets are just destroyed. You'll walk to an edge and there's just, like, a cliff. So he'll mark off, like, whole streets where you can't really go down.
That's true.
So in the original game, you'll basically pretty quickly find a key to go into an apartment building. I'm gonna touch on this again later for the remake, but in the remake, it takes a lot longer to get to the apartments. You have to go through a bunch of buildings to find, like, a broken record, and then another half of a broken record, and then some glue in a different building. Glue the records together, put it in a jukebox, find a coin in a different building to play some music, and somehow that gets you a key. It's a whole mess to get into this apartment. But for us, it took like 10 minutes at most.
Yeah. Is that because... Well, okay, combat-wise, I picked easy mode, but I stayed with normal riddles.
Yeah.
If you play in other versions or other difficulties, is it the same puzzle? I mean, it should be the same puzzle, right?
For the remake or the original?
For the original.
Well, there's no puzzle in the. I'll touch on the riddle difficulty in a moment, but I think the first puzzle that gets affected by that is the clock.
Okay. So this would be the same regardless of what combat.
Yeah.
Okay.
James basically has to go through this apartment building to get to he's trying to get to a park because that's where like one of his special places with his wife was, right? So we have to cut through these apartments. We meet Laura. We don't know her name yet, but we're just going to say her name is Laura, and she stomps on his hand when he's trying to get a key.
Very rude child.
Yeah, a little bratty 8-year-old.
Ugh.
It's like, what is she doing in this town? Like, this town is, pretty fucked up. But we'll find out.
Yeah, all these monsters, and then there's just this little girl running around on her own. Like,
yeah.
How did she even get to the freaking town? There's no other... She's clearly not with, like, an
adult.
Yeah.
That gets hinted at later, but for now, we continue through the apartments. We find Eddie.
Oh, God, this dude.
Eddie is just puking his fucking brains out.
I will say, for the remake versus this older version, when we met Eddie and he was vomiting all over the toilet and stuff, in this older version, this literally was the only thing in this entire game that made my stomach turn.
Yeah. I mean, this game isn't really too gory, but they really went all out with
him just
puking sounds for him.
Yeah, holy shit. We
meet him, he's on a toilet, he's like basically face into the toilet puking because there's a dead body in the apartment that he's in, and he's like, oh, I ran here because I was scared, and he was like that when I got here, so I guess maybe he saw the body and he's like, oh god, I mean maybe I would puke if I saw a murdered dead body like that. I'd probably just faint. I don't know.
Well, not only the visuals, but also I'm assuming the stench.
Yeah,
that's usually what gets people.
So we meet Eddie, and he's basically just this fat dude who happens to be in the town. Not much happens here. James is like, hey, be careful. Eddie's like, yeah, you too. At some point, there's this one part where we see Pyramid Head for the first time through these metal bars, right? You remember that?
Oh, yeah. He's just standing there ominously.
He's just standing there, menacingly.
There's one thing I'll say about this version of the game, because it's so high resolution.
Oh, you can see it much easier.
You can clearly see its Pyramid Head back there. But when in the original, it's just this like red ominous shape in the darkness. And like the radio you're carrying, which alerts you to monsters, is going crazy, and there's something across there and you don't know quite what it is. It's just this red thing. And as a kid, I'm like, is that like the devil or something? What is going on, this red devil thing? It was such a cool moment in the original. I don't know how that works in the remake, actually.
I guess we'll have to look it up. But in this enhanced edition, it kind of ruins the mood, I guess.
In the sense that you can just see what it is. Oh, it's Pyramid Head, and he's standing back there ominously doing nothing.
Yeah.
Eventually, we do run into a room where we meet Pyramid Head again, and he's like molesting these leg monsters.
Yeah, okay, what we can see, he's just molesting them, but in the original, or at least in the original idea, isn't he technically raping them? It's
never that explicit. There's no genitals or anything in this game.
No, but like the way he's holding this, because this is Pyramid Head, who has obviously his pyramid head, but he also has like this butcher apron, I guess he's kind of wearing.
Yeah.
And he's basically dry humping, if you will, this creature, which is just two sets of legs connected in the middle.
Yeah.
But yes, it's dry humping, but I guess it's supposed to like symbolize maybe the rape or not.
Maybe. That's interesting that you saw dry humping, because I always just saw it as he's struggling with these two legs. Imagine Pyramid Head basically, he's at the kitchen, like at a sink at the kitchen, and in the sink there's the two-legged monster, right? These monsters have two legs on the bottom, and above their waist is another set of two legs.
Yeah.
And Pyramid Head is basically holding them by the ankles and struggling with them in the sink.
See, I guess you saw struggle, I saw what maybe it was intended. To me, it feels like that's what it was intended to be. It's just, he's got the apron on, so yes, there's no genitals, it's just the movement, but...
it's either way, it's supposed to be shocking and like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
So James jumps into the closet and like hides from it, and then for some reason opens fire on Pyramid Head through the closet, which was always kind of weird.
Not only that, I mean, I guess he was worried Pyramid Head was going to open up because Pyramid Head goes right to the closet. He just stands there. But also in this older version, he shoots through the blinds, I guess, of the door, and nothing happens to the door.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. Whereas in the remake, they actually show that it like actually makes bullet holes through the door.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
Even back in the day, I thought that scene was kind of like, it's shocking at first, but then like the shooting parts, like I think everyone who plays this game is like, no, what are you doing? Don't shoot at him. But yeah, he shoots at him. Pyramid Head goes away. We make our way through the apartment. There's some puzzles with like the famous puzzle of the 6-pack of juice. You have to throw down the garbage chute that a lot of people get stumped on, I guess.
Which is funny because the way I see it is, you take a 6-pack of juice or soda, whatever it is, but the way he puts it in just kind of makes it like it was just sit on top of the garbage. Whereas if he went to a higher floor and then dropped it, you could say, okay, that was enough movement and weight to push down But the way they do it is like, dude, he could have just taken his hand and pushed the garbage down.
Yeah, I don't know. That's always been one of the weirder little mini puzzles. Again, this isn't one where the riddle difficulty affects it. It's just an environmental thing.
Weird regardless.
Eventually, we do get to the first puzzle that the riddle difficulty does affect, which is the clock, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember the story that it tells you, but there's basically a little poem or story, and you have to figure out where the clock hands rest, and then you can get through. There's another one later on with coins, with the old man, the seductress, or
the oppressor.
The seducer.
The seducer, the oppressor, and the pig.
No. This is the apartment. There's 3 coins. The old man, the lady, the snake.
Oh, that puzzle.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
There's a little story. You have to figure out where you have to put the coins in. I don't remember the story. I don't feel like spoiling them right here anyway, so.
To be fair, that puzzle took us a little while to figure out the exact order they wanted things in.
Yeah, because they give you a little story, and from the story you have to decide where each coin sits and also which 2 spaces are empty.
Yeah, where they're empty.
Yeah. In the remake, this gets changed a lot where the coins have 2 sides.
Oh, really?
So, like, you have to do that, and then the little card on the thing flips.
And then you have to do it again?
And then you have to do it again, and there's, like, 3 stages.
Jeez.
And then at the end of it, I think the lady dies, and you have to decide who's guilty. Yeah, they really changed it. Anyway, we get through the apartments. We meet Laura again outside, right?
Oh, yeah, she's, like, sitting on top of the... what would you call that?
Just like a brick wall.
Yeah, brick wall. I was thinking fence, but yeah.
She had graffitied it a bit with some silly, fun drawings, and
yeah, they were cute.
Or basically like, hey, why'd you stomp on my hand or whatever? And what's a little girl like you doing out here anyway? I like in the remake that they added a line for her, and she's like, well, what's a big dum-dum like you doing here anyways?
Yeah, her little insults are pretty cute in a childish way.
Yeah. Because she is just a kid. And that's what makes it so confusing for James, too. Is like, what are you doing out here? It's dangerous. But it doesn't seem to be dangerous for her. Anyway, she runs off again before saying, like, you didn't care about Mary anyways. And James is like, how do you know Mary? But we don't know yet, so we keep going. We go to the park finally, and that's where we meet Maria, which has been, I guess... I don't want to say controversial, but for the remake,
changed a little bit.
Yeah. So in the original game, Maria is James originally confuses her for his wife Mary
because they look identical.
Yeah, he's like, oh, your voice, your face, you could be her twin, but you're not. And she's like, well, I'm alive, and she basically like touches his face. See, I'm warm. She's very playfully seductive in a weird way.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a me thing. It seems very uncomfortable, but I guess it's supposed to be, right? Is it uncomfortable from a male point of view? Because she's, like, hitting on you, like, fucking instantly.
It's hard to say, because, like, okay, in the remake, she looks fine, and in the original, in the pre-rendered graphics, she looks good, right? But when you're back into the like regular in-game graphics, she looks like a PS2 model, so it's kind of weird looking. But like in the scenes where she looks really good, and she has that like she's wearing, I guess you could say, a sexy outfit. It's basically Christina Aguilera's outfit from one of her music videos. It's got like a pink leopard skin skirt.
Yeah.
And like a little crop top. It's
maybe they remade that in the remake because like no one would get the Christina Aguilera reference anymore.
I don't even know if it was a reference back then or if they just thought, oh, this is sexy. They could have made a better outfit for her even back then.
Yeah, but I'm biased, but because I don't like animal prints.
Anyways, yeah, but even in like the remake, I guess she's wearing like a slightly shiny black dress, but then like some red jacket. It's not like super sexy.
I like the jacket in the remake, and yeah, it's like a red colored, almost jean jacket, and the pencil skirt that she's wearing, if you look closely enough, it's actually still leopard print.
Yeah.
But it's just all black instead of the hot pink and black spots.
I think she would have been hotter without the jacket on in that, but...
I like the jacket, but...
I wonder, like... This is a side...
Yes, a side tangent.
Yeah, but like what they could have dressed her in to make her look sexy and still like, I don't know if it's they were worried about ratings or if they were worried about being called sexist for making her too sexy. But like her whole point is kind of to be sexy.
Yeah.
Because spoiler, she looks just like your wife, except she's a sexy version of your dead wife. Because your wife, or James's wife, died of a illness that she
made her very not sexy.
Yeah. Not only did it make herself feel not sexy, but she had like a bunch of skin problems, and she was not in her prime, I guess you could say, when she was dying, obviously. So yeah. James had a lot of built up sexual tension that like he couldn't deal with his wife because, you know. So Maria is like this mirror version of her, but super sexy, like this idealized sexy version of her, and that's what makes her like kind of like the yin to Mary's yang, I guess. Anyway, we meet her. She's being flirty. And James, in the original, is just kind of a weirdo, a goof, right?
Yeah, he's not weirdo in, like, creep sense. He's just, like, ambivalent, I guess you would say. He's like, okay, fine, whatever. Let's just get going. He's trying not to be turned on, I guess, maybe.
He's got kind of like a weird aloofness in the original, whereas in the remake, he's more of like a real dude. They kind of made sure the acting felt a lot more natural.
I guess, but like you could argue that the unnaturalness is what's supposed to be happening in this world. Yeah.
It's almost like a lot of people have said it's like a dream in a way, where like it kind of doesn't make sense, but it's kind of speeding along. So we go with Mary and we're walking through town and we get to this bowling alley. And that's where we meet Eddie and Laura again. Eddie's eating some pizza. Laura's making fun of him for being fat. And Eddie's like, oh, why'd you go and say that for? Laura sees James and runs away because she doesn't want to deal with James. So James has a little convo with Eddie, like, where'd you get pizza in this fucking town anyways? And how can you be eating pizza when there's monsters around? I don't know.
Because you're still fucking hungry.
We basically have to go out and find Laura because James is like, why do you know Mary, basically? So we got to find Laura. We go back out and Mary's like, oh, she just ran pie. Let's go. She went this way.
Can I bring up one quick thing? I'm kind of surprised Eddie was, in a sense, so chill about Laura making fun of him, considering what happens later.
Of his history, yeah. Maybe it's good because she's just a kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want him to lose his mind.
Or maybe he doesn't feel threatened by her.
Okay, that's fair.
Or they just don't know each other for that long. Maybe this is the first time they met and they've just been hanging out for a little bit. We got to cut through basically a strip club thing I don't know if in the original it was a strip club, but in the remake it definitely is because it has that pole,
It's
right?
definitely considering that it still has the neon sign that says like pleasure and stuff, I would say it's basically a strip club to some extent.
Yeah, I guess I just don't remember the details because we didn't really look around too well, but
I remember the neon because it appeared in the remake as well. I'm like, oh, they kept the same thing.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, Heaven's Night or something.
I don't know.
But Maria has to let us in. She has the keys. And in the original, she's got like 3 keys. One is in her boot, one is between her tits, and the other one is like, I guess, in her side pocket, in her hip or something.
My question is not why she has the keys, but why does it take 3 fucking keys to unlock this place?
I guess it's very special to her. I don't know if she like runs it or what. It's interesting because when you play Maria's story, I don't remember that being a thing. But anyway, I don't know that scenario too well. We cut through this place pretty fast. I don't think there's any scene in the original. In the remake, there's a new scene.
Yep.
We get to the hospital because that's where Laura runs and goes to. The hospital's like the second big dungeon of the game. Dungeon, quote unquote,
Complex.
location you have to explore. There's a map and a bunch of puzzles and stuff to do in there.
Was this the location where I managed to go through without the map for a while?
No, that was the prison.
Oh, okay.
In the hospital, eventually Maria finds a bed and she's like, oh, I don't feel good, so I'm going to lay here. It's like, great. Now we don't have to worry about escorting her around.
Yeah, she calls it that she has a hangover, but she didn't drink anything with us. And as much as she's hitting on James from the absolute get-go, it doesn't seem like she's been drunk at any point, but...
Yeah, maybe that's why they added that scene in the remake. Because in the remake, she pours James a drink. James didn't drink it, but she did.
But even then, like...
That was like one drink.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, a bunch of stuff happens in the hospital. There's some puzzles there with like the big... There's like a big box with like 4 different keys.
Musical box, or...
Was that musical?
Yeah, because it's not the prison, because the prison has this the puzzle. So this is going to be the musical box.
All I remember is that this box had 4 different locks and keys. One was like a keypad with a number. One was a little twisty number thing. Then there was you had to put in a card to unlock one bit and the key to unlock. Oh, wait,
maybe sorry. I think maybe the musical box is actually the hotel.
Yeah.
My bad.
But inside this big old locked box is basically just a single strand of hair.
Oh, that was so dumb.
And you use that along with some hook that you find in a teddy bear to get another... Was it a key that was hidden in the drain? I don't remember, but...
I think so.
We basically go around the hospital for a while. At some point, Pyramid Head knocks us off a ceiling while we're reading some notes about some poor guy that sounds pretty suicidal, to be honest. Do you remember that?
I remember reading a note. I forget the specific details.
He's just like, it feels so rainy today. The doctor said I'm going to be let loose today so I can go home, but I'm scared. Anyway, we also meet Laura again. And this time...
Damn kid.
She's just playing in this hospital with some teddy bears and laughing and having a good time, I guess. And James is finally able to ask her, like, hey, how do you know Mary? And Laura's like, well, if I tell you, you're not going to yell at me or something, right? He's like, no, I promise I won't yell.
And then immediately
yells when she says, well, I met her last year at the hospital. And he's like, you liar!
You dumbass.
And then he's like, oh, sorry. And basically Laura's like, fuck this guy. So she basically tricks James into going into this one room. Because she's like, oh, yeah, I put Mary's letter here, so... It's back there in the back corner. Just go get it. And she locks the door. And then a monster attacks James. It's a boss fight, blah, blah, blah.
I can't believe he fucking fell for that. Like, I guess it's like the point of the game, but like...
Yeah.
Laura says, oh, wait, I need to get this letter. And then she sends him in. Like, why? If she was actually needing to get the letter, she would have just gone and get it herself.
Yeah, clearly she was tricking James. In the remake, they played it a little bit better where the trap is sprung faster so it doesn't feel quite as...
dumb.
But, I mean, still. After that, we get this very Jacob's Ladder-esque scene where James is getting, like, pushed down the hospital hallway and you're just seeing, like, the ceiling, like... God, I always get ceiling and roof mixed up in my head. But it's the ceiling tiles and the lights just... going right, and you get dumped off into this corner of the hospital, and I forget during this whole thing you hear the siren, the famous Silent Hill siren.
Oh, I love this sound so much.
This is the second time we hear the siren. I think the first time we hear it was after the Pyramid Head fight in the apartments.
I don't remember exactly, but sure.
Yeah, I was playing that at that point. There was a boss fight in the apartment that I skipped over. It's not really a boss fight. You survive an encounter with Pyramid Head until the sirens go off and then he leaves. Anyway, this is the first introduction to the other world where the hospital, you have to explore the hospital again.
Oh yeah, and it's just like super rusted, I guess is supposed to be the texture.
Yeah, yeah. Eventually, we make our way out of the hospital, and Mary. Sorry, I'm doing the James thing and confusing Mary and Maria. Maria catches up with you, and she's pissed. She's like, I almost died back there. Why did you leave me? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I didn't get that part. Because, yeah, you leave her because she lays down that she had a hangover. Okay.
I think she's just guilt-tripping James.
I guess that's fair.
She's trying to get James to be like, you gotta protect me. To get him to feel like you didn't protect your wife.
I guess.
This is your chance to protect me. And right as she says that, you basically have to run away from, after solving this tiny little puzzle with the wall, or a door with like hands on it.
Oh, yeah.
You go through this hallway and Pyramid Head is chasing you both. And no matter what you do, once you get into the elevator,
Maria
doesn't make it. And we watch as Pyramid Head basically kills her right in front of James. And
yeah, he
then,
like stabs her with a spear or something.
Yeah.
But they don't show anything. It's just like her face goes, ugh.
Yeah. And the music starts playing and James is just like, he's
frozen.
speechless.
Yeah, he's frozen with like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Guilt?
I guess
Terror?
guilt, depression. I don't know, something like that.
Defeat? Yeah, he's like, this woman that looks just like my wife just died in front of my eyes. And it's like,
Again.
of course, this is going to fuck with him. So you get this beautiful track, depressing but beautiful, because the music, when it does play, is just it's just so good. It makes you feel what he feels. And he just like sits down in the elevator, and you're sitting in silence with this beautiful like piano track playing and just thinking about what the hell just happened. The elevator opens and James is just still sitting there. After a while, he gets up and is like, okay, we just got to keep going. You see Laura run out of the hospital and you go chasing after her. And now the town is dark. And this is where we had to do the thing of like, we have to go to the statue. And in this game, you basically just dig up a box. But in the remake, there's a cutscene out there with Angela.
Oh, yeah.
We skipped over the Angela cutscene of the apartment. But basically, she was in front of a mirror with a knife. And it was implied that she was thinking about,
I guess, killing herself?
using the knife on herself, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because if you, even after that cutscene, you get the knife, right? It's not a weapon.
It's
but
just an item.
I guess you can look at it as a tool of suicide. Because that's what Angela was kind of hinting at. If you look at it or use the item in your inventory too many times, that kind of like sets you down the suicide ending.
Oh, shit.
So we didn't do that. We didn't get that ending.
I didn't even think of looking at the knife.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you look at certain things, examine certain things, it's going to affect your ending. But anyways, that was Angela that we forgot to talk about.
Oh, yeah, and since we're talking about her right now, when we did meet her the first time in the graveyard, she's talking about how she's looking for Mama. Mm-hmm. And she mentions that, did she find her brother and father in there? I think she mentioned she found them, but she's looking for Mama. So I think that gave a little bit more context of when she's in front of the mayor, why she's contemplating suicide, because her whole family's basically gone.
Yeah, we don't know why yet, but yeah. So, dark time in town, we get the box, we go to...
Oh, this is when we can go through the door that says, like, you can enter when it's dark or something, right?
Yeah, I forget the exact quote, something about, in darkness, the door opens to nightmares or something like that. Because if you see that door in the day, it doesn't open, but at nighttime, it does open. And that's basically just a way to help you get through the town faster. We go up to the, what was it, the museum? Historical Society.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like a few paintings there, and there's a painting of Pyramid Head, and he's like, I forget what it was said, like the executioner or something.
Something, I don't know that idea.
We find a stairway to go down into.
Oh, and it just goes on forever.
Yeah, along with some
ever.
weird, like, I thought it was like a foghorn. You said it sounded like something else.
Did I? If I did, I don't remember.
I remember you just saying, oh, I like how it sounds, though.
Yeah.
But there's this just long stairway, and you're just descending.
I swear it's like
descending.
5 minutes long. It's crazy.
And you're just, it's descending and descending. You go down and down and down. And at the bottom, there's a hole. And you jump in the hole, and you go further down. And this is where you end up in the prison, right? This is the one where you basically explore the whole prison without a map.
Oops. Well, I mean, Yes, oops, but at the same time, that's literally how you do every other quote-unquote dungeon area. You check every door, so I was just basically doing the same thing.
I mean, luckily, we didn't get too lost. And it's funny, by the time you found the map, like, he had already written up all the doors that were locked or unlocked or whatever. So you had basically cleared out the whole place.
Yeah.
And yeah, the prison's a cool place because there's some. This is where some of the sounds get really cool and kind of wacky and crazy. There's this one hallway with like a mumbling sound, right?
Yeah, is
Like,
that the...
or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that
It's
was
some
cool.
weird little mumbling sound, and you hear that and you're thinking, oh great, here comes a new monster to deal with.
But it never shows up.
Yeah, and that's like it's so good. So there's this puzzle's kind of, it's not even a puzzle. You find 3 little plaques: the seducer, the
Oppressor and the pig.
the gluttonous pig. You put the slots in, you get the thing, and that opens. You can use like some wax and a horseshoe to open up this other hole.
Yeah, I didn't quite like that one.
That didn't make a lot of
but-
sense, no, but whatever.
I just want to get into me being pedantic about this. I just feel like I understand the wax hardening around the horseshoe and making a handle. I just feel that if the wax was hard enough to connect the door and the horseshoe like that it wouldn't be able to be melted so easily.
Yeah, or unmelted.
Just either way, yeah.
It would take a long time, but maybe it's dream logic. Everything happens fast. He's able to do it
That's
real
true.
quick. And we get rewarded with another hole to jump into.
Oh boy,
I think by the end of this, we've jumped down like three or four
something
holes,
like that, yeah.
plus the stairs.
Ugh.
So we're going deep, deep, deep.
Yeah, we're basically in the middle of the fucking earth at this point.
And down there is basically a labyrinth. And this is where the map changes, where he's basically drawing on a blank piece of paper. Like, it's no longer a prison with an established map. He's just writing the map as he goes.
Yeah.
You can find Pyramid Head's sword down here, which is an interesting weapon to use. I think it one-shots basically everything except bosses, but it's incredibly slow to use.
Yeah, and you're like, actually, in this version, I think you're kind of dragging it, but it doesn't seem that heavy, whereas in the remake, they make him visibly tug it along with, like, both hands and stuff.
Yeah, you do that in the original too. We just didn't really use it that much, so I guess you didn't. Because we didn't need to.
No.
The pistol killed everything in one shot, basically. And we had like 200 bullets. But yeah, it's a neat little thing you can find down there. You can miss it too. It doesn't really matter. We continue down this path. I think it's in the prison we met Eddie, and he's just like,
Oh, he's losing his shit.
yeah, because we had just fallen down a hole, and James is like lighting up the room with his flashlight, and we see Eddie sitting there, and the first thing he says, which I think I don't know if you want to call it a censor, but they kind of changed this line in the remake, but he says, "Killing somebody's no big deal," or something like that.
Yeah, he's clearly had a psychotic break of some sort.
Yeah, and he's holding the gun, and he's like, you just point the gun, you just point it, and pow.
Bam. Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, it's like, what the hell? And then James is like, Eddie, did you kill this guy? And he's like, yeah, he had it coming. He was making fun of me. And James is like, Eddie, you can't kill somebody for making fun of you or looking at you weird.
Yeah.
And Eddie's like, oh, James, I'm just kidding. He was dead when I got here. And it's just like,
Which is interesting too, because this is the guy who's dead at the table, right?
yeah.
So even if, whether or not Eddie killed or didn't kill this guy, Eddie says he came after him. But clearly that's not the case because the dude's just sitting at the table. So he wouldn't have been coming after Eddie anyways.
Yeah, even in the remake, they touch on this a bit where at the first thing Eddie says is like, he came at me, but then like he starts talking about, well, he was looking at me and he was making fun of me, and James was like, I thought you said he came at you, and that's where Eddie's like, I'm just joking, James. It's the remake Eddie is so good. The original Eddie is really good too, and they're both good in different ways. I think the remake makes him a bit more terrifying, whereas in the original, he's kind of like, at first you almost feel for him, but then
I
he
guess.
starts, eventually you're like, what is with this guy?
Yeah. I think in the remake, just his facial features are more grotesque.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original, he's like still gross and fat, but like he still looks like a normal person.
In the remake, there's also that one scene where he's like eating ice cream with his bare hands.
Oh, God.
Which even that is like monstrous. It's so weird. Like, who does that? But anyways, at the end of this whole section, before we leave the prison in the labyrinth underground, we have to face Eddie again. At the very end, we come upon Eddie, and again, he's with some dead people, and he's just rambling and going crazy. And
Is this the part where he talks about, like, murdering the dog felt good or was easy or something like that?
well, he goes into like, yeah, he had it coming to him, just like that dog. And he talked about how he like shot the dog, and like the dog was basically like eating his own guts or something. And then like the dog's owner came out and he shot him in the knee, and he's like, it's gonna be hard to play football with a knee like that. And he's lost it.
Yeah.
And in the original, James says the stupidest thing you could to a person like this, and he says, Eddie, are you nuts?
Oh, God.
And like, you don't say that to a person with a gun talking about killing people.
Yeah.
And at this point is where Eddie's like, you too, James? I knew it. And that's basically what causes the violence between the two to pop off. In the remake, they do something really cool with Eddie. Whereas, like, when you meet him eating an ice cream, he's also got a pizza box.
Yeah, so that's like the throwback.
Yeah, and like, you still meet him in the toilet, at the toilet where he's like been puking.
It's not as bad.
But when you see him the second time when he's eating the ice cream, James makes this little lighthearted comment. He says, oh, well, I'm glad to see you got your appetite back.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Eddie, and he looks so ashamed. He puts the thing down, and he's like looking down and to the side, and you can see that fucking hurt him. And that was the first hint of like, oh, James thinks I'm a fucking fat weirdo too. But at this at the end where you meet Eddie to fight him, James doesn't say, Eddie, are you nuts? Or whatever. He kind of knew already. He's like, even you, James, from the beginning, I know you've been making fun of me too, the way you look at me and all this stuff. So like they had been rolling it all throughout the game.
Yeah.
So it feels a little bit more natural instead of the original where he just basically says, Eddie, are you fucking crazy?
And also, like, if you don't pick up on how he felt in the movie theater when he now says, like, oh, you've been making fun of me too, it's even more that, like, Eddie is clearly paranoid.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's been bullied, obviously, but, like, he's been so traumatized with bullying that he thinks everybody is a potential
bully.
Yeah, so even James, which granted, don't fucking say, are you fucking nuts to somebody with a gun.
Yeah, like, the next worst thing you'd say is calm down. Like, someone going through that mental anguish is not going to be able to calm down.
So you basically have a boss fight with Eddie. The way in the original, he can, like, shoot you with his gun or punch you. But because we were playing with baby mode easy, Deanna basically just lifted her pistol, shot him like 5 times, and he died.
Yeah, he was just slowly walking towards me, I think.
Yeah, I think he was coming to punch you because he was still close. If you're close, he'll punch you. If you're far away, he'll shoot. It was really striking to watch this scene unfold in easy mode where like Eddie is he's like at the very beginning of this fight, Eddie's standing there. Deanna lifts her pistol, shoots him 5 times, and he dies.
It's not my fault. He's a massive walking target.
It just felt like if it wasn't for everything Eddie had already said about shooting that guy and like killing ain't no big deal, it would feel like you just murdered somebody in cold blood. But anyways,
Hey, Eddie, you were right. This was fucking easy.
So Eddie's dead, and in the original, James is like, I killed a human being, and he's just like looking at his hands, like, what the hell did I just do? And we don't know the full story of James yet, but that's something to think about.
Yeah.
So we leave this place, and despite having gone down a staircase that took like 5 minutes to walk down, and then jump down like 5 different holes, we come out at sea level. So this is like, what the hell's going on in this fucking town or in James's mind?
Yay,
right?
dream logic.
Yeah, we get on this canoe, and we have to row over this lake, which isn't anything too interesting. There is like an article we read earlier about like a bunch of sunken ships and ghostly
ships. Because I remember reading an article where like these people had died from like a plague or something that went through the town, and they were buried at the
there was also that,
quote unquote, buried at sea. Even though it's a lake.
So there was like 2 different incidents in the lake. That was one of them. The other one was a ship that sunk out there, and the whole thing's like, oh, sometimes you can see skeletal hands reaching up from the lake.
I guess I missed that.
So I think they're feeling like, it feels like they want to hype up the lake, like, oh, it's going to be scary, but nothing really happens. You just row out to the hotel. You finally get to the hotel, your special place with Mary, right? And oh wait, I skipped over one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. So let me double back to the labyrinth. Before we fight Eddie, we're in that labyrinth, right?
Yeah.
So you meet Maria, and she's sitting in this room with bars, and this is all happening in the pre-rendered cutscene, so it looks really good, right?
Yeah.
James comes up and he's like, Maria, I thought you were dead. I saw you die.
She's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and he's like, don't you remember? You were stabbed. I saw you die.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, and she's like, you were always so forgetful. You remember that time in the hotel when you forgot our tape or whatever? And she's like, is this looks like Maria, but she's acting like Mary. So even James is like, I thought you were Maria. And she cuts all her niceness, where she's like, oh, you so silly, you forgot all this. But at this point, she just says,
I'm not your Mary.
She says it in like, I'm not your Mary, almost angrily.
Yeah.
It's so shocking at that moment, because she's been being so sweet and flirty and happy, whatever. And suddenly, I'm not your Mary. And in the cutscene, like, you don't see her eyes, so you can't read her expression, right?
Yeah, she looks very, I don't know if the devilish is the word, but it's just like haunting.
Very ominous. I love it. It's my favorite scene in the entire game. Just the way she says that one line, I'm not your Mary, is so striking.
Yeah, that was good.
And basically, James is like, oh, yeah, you're Maria. And they basically go into the whole thing again. It's like, yeah, I can be whoever you want me to be, but I can't do much behind these bars. And she's like touching his face through the bars, right? Like, I'm alive. Come find me.
Yeah.
We can do whatever you want. And James is just like, okay, I'll come get you. Because we don't know what James's feeling is like. Does he want Maria at this point? Does he like, I need her? Or is it just, I have to save her again?
Yeah, because he feels bad about not saving his wife, I'm assuming, from her illness.
Yeah, it's like you have to like think about what is James feeling here? We don't really know. Is he feeling the lust for Maria because she's being seductive, or is he feeling like the guilt of like, I have to save her, I can't let her die again? That scene is my favorite in the entire game. So that is one thing in the remake that I feel like isn't quite as good. That scene, and that line specifically, the I'm not your Mary line, it doesn't hit as good in the remake.
Yeah, which I kind of feel bad, because I feel like the voiceovers for the remake are not, they're still really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that one particular read, somehow it just hits different.
Yeah, it's also because in that cutscene you can see her eyes. They goofed that up.
You're not supposed to be able to see it.
You shouldn't be able to read her facial expression. That's what made it extra creepy. I think they screwed up that for the in the beginning of the game when James was at the mirror. In the original, you can't see his eyes either. You can't tell what's going on in his head. You can't read his expression. When they first made the first trailer for this remake,
that come up a lot?
Yeah, you could see his eyes in the mirror, and it's like that. You can read his expression. He looks sad here. You shouldn't be able to read his expression. I think they heard the feedback and they're like, "Oh yeah, we should make it so we can't see his eyes," and they fixed that.
But they didn't manage to fix it for Maria.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't in the trailers back then, so people didn't bring it up. But it was a goof up, and it's unfortunate. It's not that big of a deal, especially if you've never played it either way. If you're playing this for the first time, it's probably fine. But like, to me, the original is 100 times better because of that. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I touched on that scene because it is definitely my favorite scene in the game. You eventually you find Maria, you get to her room and she's dead. And James is like, oh, no, not again, basically.
Yeah. And it doesn't make sense. Like, there's blood on her, but there's no reason that she's actually dead. It doesn't...
I think it's
or is it supposed to be a suicide or something?
No. I think it's... She's laying in basically a hospital bed.
Oh, so it's like a
And she's got like
reimagining?
the same thing on her face that Mary did. So it's
Gotcha.
basically she died from the same thing. So I guess the idea is even when he's trying to save her, he can't save her from this disease. Anyway, back to the hotel. We do end up meeting Laura again.
Oh, yeah, because this was the room with the piano, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was funny because I walked into this room, and there's like other boxes too, like if someone was trying to move or something. And there's the piano in the corner. I don't know why, because technically I never played that game. I played some of Mario 64, but I didn't get that far. And I look at the piano in the corner, and my immediate thought is, oh, imagine if it came alive just like in Mario 64. And then I move closer, and it fucking goes, bang, and that actually gave me a fucking jump scare.
It's funny because like
I'm like, God damn it.
Laura pops out and she's like, haha, did I scare you?
Yes, you fucking did. Good
Yeah.
job.
And you and Jace is like, yeah, you did. And so they finally get to have another conversation. And Laura tells him, oh, yeah, I met Mary at the hospital. We became friends and she gave me this letter. And you get to read Laura's letter from Mary. And it's basically like, happy birthday, happy 8th birthday. You know, you've been so fun and nice. And, you know, I love you like my own daughter. If things goes well, maybe I'm thinking about adopting you or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The whole idea is Mary likes Laura, and if she got better, she wanted to adopt her because Laura's parents have died.
Now, here's the thing. I clearly had read the room wrong with this. When you played this the first time back in 2001 or whatever, did you read it that Laura was actually the one that was sick? Because that's, I guess, yeah, it's implied that her parents died when I think about it. But somehow I had read it that Laura was also in the hospital being sick. Because I thought
yeah.
that, like, this imagining that Laura was also somehow, like, idea in James's head and not actually real and alive.
I thought when I played through this, I thought Laura was in the hospital for something.
Okay.
But I guess the other idea of her being in the hospital because her parents, one of her like last remaining parents was dying, I guess also makes sense.
Yeah. And especially because Laura herself doesn't show any signs of sickness here.
Yeah. I don't really know which one is true. Maybe there's info out there I don't know off the top of my head, but basically from this scene we learned that yeah, she was close with Mary, and James asks, because he read in the letter, happy 8th birthday. He asks Laura, how old are you? And she's like, oh, I turned 8 last week. And that's when everything starts like coming together in his mind, like, wait a minute, Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago. Maybe she is still alive. Maybe she's here.
That's an interesting thing because I was kind of surprised that he somehow now accepted that Laura had indeed just had her birthday last week when he was so upset. Like, I'm just kind of surprised that he didn't go back to the idea of, no, Laura's lying. Mary died 3 years ago.
I guess it's because, like, the letter says 8 years old, and Laura looks like she's around that age.
Yeah, I guess that's...
If it was 3 years later, she would have been, like, 11, and she doesn't look like an 11-year-old.
I guess kids do change a lot in a short amount of time.
So Laura's like, yeah, she also had a letter for you, James, but I basically lost it. So she runs off to find it. And James is like, no, don't go, blah, 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 whatever. We have to go through the dungeon again, or through the hotel to keep finding more clues. We find a tape, and we're able to get to the room where James
There's
and
a
Mary...
working TV, yeah.
Yeah, there's a TV and a VCR in there. And we were like, well, I guess we play the tape. And it starts off with just Mary, and she's like, oh, you're recording again, James. I guess James had the habit of recording stuff on his camcorder. I don't actually know what James does for a living, but we see Mary, and she's just talking about how she loves being in Silent Hill. I'm like, oh, it's so peaceful here, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, it cuts to a part where we see her in bed, and it can be hard to read, especially if you were playing on an SD TV, but I read it as he comes over to her, kisses her on the forehead, and then basically smothers her with a pillow.
Yeah. It's definitely easier to see in this enhanced version. Because I could definitely read it as he was... I don't remember if I understood that he kissed her on the forehead first, but I do understand that, like, he smothered her with a pillow or something. And I guess she fights back. Does she fight back? Like, in theory, she doesn't because she wanted to die.
Well, she was of two minds, and we learn this later when we hear more of her voice, but she's like talking about how like I feel so ugly and hopeless and I just wish I would die, but oh, the hospital's making a pretty penny off of me, so I guess they can't let me die. And she would lash out at James like, just go, what are you doing here? I told you to leave. And she's just like frustrated and angry at everything and herself and
Her situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when someone is in the process of dying in this type of way, that, yeah, emotions are just going to run high for literally everyone in the area.
Yeah, and even for her, like, not even like a minute later, she's like, no, wait, don't go. Please stay. I'm scared. Please tell me I'm not going to die or something. And it's just the back and forth between her, in herself. And like, you feel for her so much when she's saying this. And you also start feeling for James too, because like, he's dealing with the person that he loves more than anything.
Yeah.
Telling him to go, I hate you and I hate everything, just leave, what are you doing here? And then like a second later being like, no, don't go, please stay.
You know, it's
so hard to deal with that.
It's interesting because I don't know if this is going to get a little too personal for anyone listening.
That's Silent Hill 2, baby.
Yeah, I guess. But going through this the first time while actually playing the game, I guess I kind of understood it a little bit. But when we watched the remake and we were watching the hallway scene again, and she's going through that, the very low and then the kind of like, please no, stay with me and stuff like that. That actually hit a lot closer when I was thinking more about it, and I actually kind of teared up during that, because while I don't obviously understand what it's like going through the death process with an illness like that, I equated it closer to what I understood as the depression thing. And I understand when your mind is not in its right place that you will lash out and like, no, leave me alone. I'm going to go into the bedroom. I'm going to lay down. Don't look at me. Don't think of me. Don't perceive me. And yet at the same time, the other half of your brain is going, please come and check in on me. I need help. I don't know what to do. And knowing that feeling and seeing that happen in this part of the game, and yeah, that hit really fucking close for me. So
yeah, this is one of the reasons it's such a, I guess, beloved, even though, you know, we're talking about sad stuff. It's so emotional in such a relatable way for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, like when I was like a teenager, I think I was probably like 18, 19 when I played this, maybe 20 at most. And like I wasn't married, but you still feel the empathy for these people, like that situation.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people talk about like, oh yeah, I lost my father to cancer, and this part hit hard because we recognize and understand how that feels.
Yeah.
So yeah, hearing all that is just like, oof. And it's like, you kind of see everything coming together. Mary ain't alive. We know what happened and why it happened. And it still like bothers James. Like,
yeah, he finally figures out, yeah, my wife died, but it's because I technically killed her.
And like part of that inner fight of still like, sometimes she said she wanted to die because she just wanted the pain to end. She wanted to stop being a burden. But then there's also the parts of her was like, I don't want to die. I'm scared. Yeah. Please tell me I'll live. So it's like, did James do a mercy, or is he still feeling guilty? Is he guilty of... It's a whole complicated mess, right?
And later when we go over the letter, I think I'll understand a little bit more too. We'll
get to that in a bit. I guess, anyway, we watch this tape and hear all this stuff, and like, this is a point where James realized, oh, this is what happened. This is the actual events. Laura comes in and she's like, hey, did you find Mary?
Yeah.
And James is just like silent in shock. He doesn't even like sugarcoat it. That's the one thing I was like, this is a kid, but he's not in the right headspace for this. So he just tells her, I killed her. And she goes crazy. She's like, I hate you. I hate you.
Bring Mary back to me or something.
Yeah. And then she runs away. Right. And like, that's understandable.
Obviously.
It's crazy. We continue through the game. You missed this special save point, the 3x3 grid of save points right before the quote unquote final boss.
My bad.
It's funny, you didn't even see it, but yeah, that's one of the iconic scenes or iconic set pieces. That is the loading icon for the remake, the 3 squares or the 9 squares. Anyway, after that we run into a room and there's Pyramid Head and Maria and an extra Pyramid Head.
Oh yeah.
And Maria gets killed again for like the 4th time this game. And then James is like, I don't need you anymore. And there's a little fight with the Pyramid Heads, but at the end they kill themselves.
Yeah, that was interesting. Now, when James screams out, I don't need you anymore, do you think he was yelling that at Maria or the Pyramid Heads? Because it could have been either,
It
both.
could be either, but I think at that point it's the Pyramid Heads because we still see Maria again later.
True.
And he tells her that at that point.
Do you think James understood what the 2 Pyramid Heads were standing in for? Because I don't think I caught that the first time either.
I don't know how much he knows or how much I guess you could say he does, because it's kind of hard to read even as like someone who's played it a bunch of times. Are they punishing him for not knowing what he did? Are they punishing him for murder? Because the second Pyramid Head only appears after Eddie dies, after he kills Eddie.
Yeah.
But after he stops denying that he is the one that killed these people, the Pyramid Heads are like, they go away. They kill themselves. They impale themselves on their own weapons.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that either. Is that supposed to stand for anything, or just...
What, the impaling themselves?
Yeah.
No, I think it's just that they're like, we're not needed anymore, so we're dying.
Oh, okay.
Because every other time you run into Pyramid Head, he just walks away. But this is the time where Pyramid Head just kills himself. After this, we go to see the final boss, I guess. That's where we go down the hallway and we hear the scene with Mary talking about how she's scared and she doesn't want to die, but she's also angry and lashing out. So we're going up a stairway, right? It's like these metal stairs, and we get to the roof, I guess. It's some weird outside area with...
Is it outside? I thought it was...
It's kind of like
misremembering.
Well, it's a boss arena.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a bed, and there's Mary standing there at the window.
And this time it's quote-unquote actually Mary. Or at least in the physical aspect.
Yeah, she's wearing Mary's clothing.
And she's got like her hair tied up too, I think.
Yeah, but we know it's not Mary. And James talks to her, and it's Maria. I forget exactly what he says to her, but basically like, I don't need you anymore. I know what happened. We have to end this. And Mary's like, no, Maria is like, no, I'm not going to let you do this. If I can't have you, blah, 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 whatever. Maria is an interesting character because she's a Silent Hill creation, but she's also kind of like her own thing, and she wants James. She does want to provide for James and like be what Mary can't be. If you get the Maria ending, you see that a bit more. But we don't get the Maria ending because that's not how we got the Laura ending, basically.
Yeah.
The return.
I think you said I definitely screwed up the Maria ending because I like attacked her.
Yeah.
Because I was fucking around.
Yeah, if you attack Maria or bump into her too many times or let her get hurt by enemies, the points that the game is calculating towards the endings, you lose the Maria points, so you can't get her ending, or it's less likely. You got basically the good ending. So after the boss fight, which again was ridiculously easy for us, she falls to the ground and she's like in this cage. And
it's like the hospital bed, but then yes,
it's also like a cage. Yeah.
And it kind of moves almost like a spider. Like it's got those weird legs and stuff for whatever reason.
And yeah, you made a point when we were playing it that even I didn't think about. It's like, oh, because Mary's hospital bed was like a cage for her. And yeah,
because she was bedbound.
So at the end of the fight, Maria's on the ground and she's just like, James, and you can just let her say that over and over. You have to like finish her off down there. And that's when like you get the scene with the ending, and that's when we see James talking to Mary, and he's like, I'm sorry, honey, I did it for you. But then he's like, well, no, that's not true. I also did it for me because I kind of started to hate you at the end there.
Yeah.
And they're just having this final conversation, and she's like, it's okay. Just live. Do me one favor. Live, move on.
Move on with your life, yeah.
And then you get the real letter.
Yeah.
And holy shit, that letter, especially in the original, because the way that voice actress reads the letter.
I mean, yes, the original voice of the letter was good, but even in the remake, I could hear that the actress was she has this bit towards the middle or towards the late end where she is still getting choked up just like the original reading. So it's it's more spot on in the remake than in the Maria in the prison cell read off.
I remember after watching some people play through this game, the remake, I was like, I got to hear the letter. I got to hear what the letter sounds like. And to me, that's what cemented it to me. Like, it's just not as good to me. So I was like, I got to make Deanna play the original just so she can feel the one I felt. And yeah, like that letter every fucking time, it's a tearjerker. Like my eyes will water up every time, especially like
The thing to me is when I was listening to the letter the first time, and maybe when we watched all the cutscenes of the remake and stuff afterwards, the one part of the letter that got to me afterwards, when I thought more about it, was Mary says something to the effect of, "I'm sorry what I put you through." And originally I had just equated that with, oh, she felt sorry for having this illness and having to put James through seeing her turn monstrous in her own idea of the like scarring of her face or whatever was going on with this mysterious disease. But then I thought about it later and I'm like, maybe she meant it in that way, but she may have also meant it in the sense that she's sorry that James basically had to put her out of her misery, and that's what she put him through. Because he smothered her to try and let her, I don't know if you'd call it die with dignity, but to make the pain end for her. But then he has to then go through all the mental anguish of that he killed his fucking wife.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I guess the idea then is like, did she want James to do that, or did she know he was going to do that? Because I don't think that's the reading I got personally. Because I think it's theorized that in the letter she says, "Oh, they're going to let me come home for a bit, not because I'm getting better, but because it's probably going to be the last time I can."
Yeah.
And that's probably when James did it. Because I doubt he wouldn't have been able to get away with it if he killed her at the hospital, right?
I guess.
So he probably killed her at home.
I feel like there would have been an easier way to kill her than smothering with the
Yeah,
pillow.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. But so it feels like she probably didn't know that was going to happen. And also just the fact that the letter was supposed to be given out like after she died. So,
I don't know. At least in the hospice care, how they usually end someone's life is, and they might have done this to my own grandpa, I don't know, but usually they kind of just pump them up with morphine, and they'll give enough morphine where it calms you down, it takes away the pain, but if you, I guess, quote unquote overdose on it, it just kind of slowly shuts your body down. And that's usually the mercy killing that they tend to give people.
Anyway, I guess we're not going to read the letter. I mean, if you want to read the letter,
Yeah, it's pretty long.
if you either just play the game or
Just watch the cutscenes.
watch it on YouTube, I guess I would suggest watching the original ending for the original game, because to me that the way she voices that is just so much better. As this is happening, you see the ending you get in the background. We got the this time the leave ending, which is James and Laura leave Silent Hill, and I guess like maybe James will honor Mary's wish of moving on and living
And adopting Laura.
and adopting Laura, right? When I originally played this game, the very first ending I got was the in water ending. And that's basically after all this, after Mary saying live and move on, James just couldn't. He just couldn't. And he gets in his car and he drives into the freaking lake and dies, basically. And you see the letter read and the water and the bubbles, and you hear the car driving into the lake, and yeah, he just couldn't, right? And that's the ending I got as a kid.
And again, not one of the easier deaths to give yourself,
No, but he just didn't care.
I guess.
And I don't think that's the canonical ending. I think the leave ending is the canonical ending. I don't know if there is a canonical ending, but yeah, that's the one I got, and I thought it fit because like after all that and finding out, it's just like, I don't know, man. That's crazy tough. And it's just like the way the game ends. It's just what an experience. Like, holy shit. I can't even.
Are there any more things you want to talk about the ending? Because I want to rewind a little bit and go back.
No, I guess not. I mean, either ending is interesting. We won't go too far into talking about the other. I guess we can lightly talk about the Maria ending, where you didn't see this. I didn't just show you it on YouTube, but basically he leaves Silent Hill, or he is attempting to leave Silent Hill with Maria. And she starts, she starts coughing at the end, and all he says is like, "Oh, you better watch out for that cough," or something like that.
It's like, oh god, he's gonna go through the same shit all over again.
Like you didn't learn anything basically in that ending, and it's just like it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And so that ending is interesting, but the leave ending and the water ending to me are the interesting and like more fitting endings, even if one of them is really sad. But sadness happens in real life, and sometimes you don't get a happy ending.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead. What was it you want to bring up?
So while this main story of him and Maria and Mary and all this stuff, obviously interesting in its own right, I also found the story of, was it Angela?
Angela. We forgot to mention Angela's last. We didn't mention her Abstract Daddy or the staircase, but yeah,
no,
go ahead.
I found her story very interesting, but obviously depressing as well.
Yeah.
So it's the labyrinth going up and down those ladders where we find the door to hers, right? I think.
Yeah, where we fight the Abstract Daddy.
Yeah, so you go through this door that you just happen to find, and you're basically going into this hallway to a stairwell that goes up, and it's just absolutely engulfed in fire. And you see Angela towards the lower end, not quite halfway up the stairwell.
Oh yeah, this is the end. This is the one in the hotel, actually, at the end.
Oh, okay, hotel, my bad.
Because the first one that happens is in the labyrinth. You go into that room with the pistons.
Oh yeah.
And she's like screaming. You just hear her say, "Daddy, no," or something like that. And like you get in there and you see this monster. And its official name is Abstract Daddy. None of these monsters are named in game, but that's what the documentation calls it. And it's basically this creature that it looks like it's on top of a bed, but it looks like there's another thing under it too. Yeah,
there's like two shapes of what you could assume are heads. And they're basically encased in the bed, sort of like a cocoon almost. And one is definitely bigger. The one on top is definitely bigger than the one that's on the bottom.
Yeah, that's the one in control.
Yeah. It's interesting because, again, I didn't see that the first time. I saw it, I think I had brought it up to you. In Star Wars, he's encased in some kind of...
Oh, yeah. I forget the name of it. It's not kryptonite.
He's encased in something.
Han Solo. Yeah.
So that's how I saw it the first time. But then seeing it again, I could definitely make out the two shapes. And you brought up the thing with the pistons, because I just saw it as pistons. But you mentioned that it's like, oh, it's this cylindrical thing going in and out of a hole and stuff. And you can make the connection there. And so you figure out that, like, she's either physically abused, but then the pistons make it that she was also sexually abused. So it's a little bit of both. And I thought this was horrifically interesting, if you will. Because usually when someone's doing things to a child, they usually... most of the time it's seen as like, oh, happy playtime, you know? But in her case, it seems like it was used more as the punishment.
Yeah, we're getting kind of dark here.
Yeah.
But the game is dark. I mean, yeah, it goes into that.
So then later you go to the staircase and she's on the staircase and she's like, Mama, you're here. Mama, you're here. But it's actually James. And she goes up and like touches James' face. And then she's like, wait, you're not Mama. And then you might remember more of this than me, so if you want to explain it more concretely. She was looking for Mama, but I also felt, because she mentions at this, I don't know if it's this point or a different point, that like, it sounded like her mom was enabling the husband or the father.
Or she says like, you deserved what happened or something like that.
Yeah, so like... I guess she was looking for Mama for security, but then she brings up that, you know, Mama was letting this happen to her anyways.
And that's basically when she just gives up on all of this, when she remembers that Mama is not really going to help her.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm guessing after all that abuse, it feels to me like she set the house on fire and that's why everyone died. And
maybe.
She was the lone...
yeah, so, maybe.
Because she also mentions like... oh, this is how it always is for me.
Yeah,
in the sense of like the burning staircase.
That's an interesting line too, because like it's not proven either way in the game, but like some people are like, well, James sees Silent Hill as foggy. Maybe Angela sees everything as burning, but she also mentions the fog in the beginning too. And then they touched on this in the remake where Eddie apparently is very cold. Like when you see him eating the ice cream, he has cold breath, even though he's like not in like a freezer or anything. But I mean,
but he does end up in a freezer later.
Yeah.
I don't know. Angela's story is obviously incredibly dark, but also there's a thing in the remake where they made her younger looking.
Yeah.
Like you said, she's supposed to be 19, but in the original, I feel like she came off as like a 30-year-old.
Yeah. Even in the pre-rendered cutscenes, she still looks kind of old. So they made her look younger in the remake, which I think fits her a lot better.
I mean, does it? Because, yeah, you could argue that... I don't know. I think it's interesting because if she was older, say she takes the form of a 30-year-old woman, or at least how I saw her. I mean, something like that follows people through their entire life.
True, but I guess in my view would be like James has visited this town basically right after killing his wife, because we learned that that Laura's birthday was not even a week ago, right?
Yeah.
So it is very recent, and some people are said you can like, oh, if you look in the back of his car, you can see her body, but that's kind of a, I don't want to say old wives' tale, urban legend or whatever. I don't know how true that is. James basically comes right back to town after killing his wife, and that's why you see when he's looking in the mirror, at first you're like, oh, this is just a sad, depressed guy. What is he feeling? But you could also kind of look at it as like he's not reconciling what he just did, but like struggling with what he just did. He's looking in the mirror and he's like,
what did I just do?
Yeah, and then that's when everything just breaks and he forgot.
I suppose.
And at that moment, he's like, oh, I'm not here because I just killed my wife. I'm here because I got a letter.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important that you don't see his eyes. So if that's the case, if James is coming here right after, I feel like maybe for Angela, that also is a very recent thing, the burning or the killing.
It could have
And maybe
been.
that's why she can't find her brother and father in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I'm pretty sure they're around here somewhere.
Maybe.
So I feel like, yeah, she's probably youngish.
I guess that would make sense. Like, if it was just her father and mother, she could have burnt them later on.
Yeah.
But because it includes her brother, and usually if it's like a younger brother, maybe even a slightly older brother, they'd still be home if they're younger. Whereas if she was in her 30s, maybe her brother wouldn't have been in the home still.
Yeah.
So I guess that could make sense. But I still find it interesting in a very depressing way if she was older and still trying to reconcile with this.
Yeah,
life.
having lived with it for a while and then eventually just couldn't take it anymore, maybe. I mean, who knows? This is the thing with this game, especially like a lot of it is just up to interpretation, and a lot of people have pooled their interpretations on the internet, and it can get kind of passed around as like the canon thing. But I mean,
I guess I'll go with that interpretation.
it's also it's tough going into Silent Hill 2. I've seen some people go into the remake like already kind of like knowing, oh, the monsters are a representation of James's inner demons or whatever. And it's like when you first play this game, you're just experiencing it and you're not overanalyzing it, where some people go into the game and they're overanalyzing everything from the get-go. Like you kind of did for a little bit, like, oh, is Laura real or is she dead or whatever? And it's like, don't overthink about it.
I guess.
Which is too bad, because I think that can kind of like ruin it a bit. It's kind of like going into Undertale when people tell you don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Just play the game and then re-examine everything after.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, yeah. Either way, I think it's just a great game. It holds up, even the PS2 version. I know that some of the graphics can be kind of funny when they're not like the pre-rendered cutscenes, but I still think it's really good. Everyone who is interested in either horror or psychological horror or just games as a storytelling medium that can make you feel emotions, like, should give it a shot.
I guess I'll ask you one more question before we leave, since we've basically finished the story of the game. Now, you said, obviously, that you still had obviously empathy for
Yeah.
this whole story when you played it back in 2001. Did it change at any after the fact that you are now married and have a wife? Like,
You?
yes, but like it's a legitimate question.
No,
Like,
it
does
is.
it change that now you're a married man?
I mean, it changes it in the fact that, like, you can empathize with James a bit more. Like, seeing your partner suffer like that and hearing them say things like that. Like, how would you react? It's tough. Like, partners have to go through that all the time with, like, oh, if I'm in a coma or whatever, just pull the plug, that kind of thing, right? Some people can't do it, and you have to, like, listen to your partner's wishes and whatever. And even you, when you've said, like, I don't want to be on the thing, it's still hard to think about, like, am I really going to give up? Because then, like, my life just is not going to be the same without you, and it's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So I can understand James in the sense of, like, having to deal with not only what they both went through together, but just the fact of, like, the hope. There's a line in the remake. I think they're at the bar, and Maria and James are talking, and he says, like, am I crazy for coming here, like, thinking she's alive? That it just I'm crazy, aren't I? And she's like, well, that's one thing you could say, or you could say you're just hopeful. And it's like, if there is any chance, as small, as stupid, as crazy as it may be, to save you or see you again, and it's like, it's easy to see how somebody could fall into that and be like, I'm gonna go to this town and I'm gonna deal with all this shit. Life doesn't matter. I don't care how dangerous it is. I'm going anyways. I want to see you again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can, in that sense, yeah, I can empathize more. Like, just the fact of having to go through that and being like, because a lot of people, there have been times when people are like, oh, James saw this monster. That's what I wouldn't have been like. I'm getting out of here. I would have been like, no, I don't care. Is there still a chance? Does this prove that something weird has happened and maybe she's here?
And then, like, even with the fact of, like, going into this horrible situation with all these monsters and stuff, if you do find out that your other half is, in fact, actually dead and gone, then, yeah, like the water ending, then just, I don't care if it's dangerous, because if I die, then so be it.
Yeah. Like, what do I care? I don't have anything to live for anymore anyways.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the struggle in the beginning when you see him looking at the mirror. Like, what is he feeling? Is he feeling that, like, I don't have anything to live for? I don't even care about my life, my safety. Everything's over. So I'm here now. Mm-hmm. And I can feel that for sure now, especially, like, again, as a kid, I would still empathize with James because, like, oh, he wants to see his wife and all this sucked. But now, especially, like,
it just hits a little bit different.
Yeah, because I think James and Mary are, like, they're in their 30s, late 30s or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm 40 now and you're still in your, mid 30s, but it just, so much of our life has been spent together.
Yeah,
that
more than half of my life for sure.
And, like, what is life without you? I don't know. It's scary. A lot of people have to deal with that. Like, there are widows out there that deal with that, and I feel so bad for them, obviously. And, like, it's one of those things you just don't want to imagine, right? But if you do imagine it and you get, like, this small glimmer of hope, like, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. It would jump through flaming hoops just for a chance. Yeah, I can see why. I wouldn't be like those people that say James saw the monster and, like, I would have got out of there by now. No, I don't care. Like, what else am I gonna do with my fucking life?
And I guess this would be a completely different discussion, so I'll only just bring up a quick point. But this situation and all this just kind of makes me think, like, we do need to maybe think about death a tiny little bit more and just understand that it's something that is going to just happen naturally, whether we want it to or not. And we need to be able to live with that fact, I think. But again, that's a completely different...
I guess it's a different thing, but it's also part of the game in the sense of, like, what did James learn from this? Is he guilty? Should he feel guilty? How much of that guilt is bearable? Because that you could get the two different endings, where the one where he does move on and is able to get past that, and the one I got where he just couldn't. So that's just, both are natural things. That emotions are a complicated thing. Like, everyone's going to deal with it in different ways. whether there be the politically correct way to say that you should be able to move on, and some people just can't, and I can't blame somebody for not being able to, I guess.
No, I mean, I certainly don't blame them either. It's just, my thought, again, is just that's could have been easier.
Yeah, well,
I guess it's always easier to say 2020? Hindsight. Is 2020. There we go.
So that was Silent Hill 2. Holy cow, that was a long one. But
yeah. I hope you enjoyed this summary in our...
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Now that you've experienced the game, do you think it lives up to the hype? Or...
It's honestly hard for me to say just because I had seen so many videos of it beforehand. It might have been different had I not known.
Emotionally impactful? I mean, you said at one point you felt...
Yes, it was still emotionally impactful for me. But it was also kind of like impactful after the fact. Because going through the game, I guess I was maybe trying to analyze it a little bit too much. So I admit I did that. But then looking back and thinking things over and watching that cutscene and connecting it to a personal experience of mine, that was impactful in a slightly different way.
You know, they said they're making another Silent Hill movie.
Oh boy.
And it's going to be based on Silent Hill 2.
That could be good or bad depending on how they do it.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be the same for the remake, so.
That's going to be interesting to see. And I'm glad that you have experienced the game, so we'll be able to both judge it and be like, wow, they did a good job, or wow, this was not a good movie. We'll see. Because I liked the first movie. It had its issues, but I mean, it had a lot of issues, but it was still fun. The second movie was not good.
The second movie, you said I saw it with you?
Yeah.
I literally don't remember fucking anything. I only remember the first movie. So, and it's interesting because I remember absolutely loving the first movie, and then we saw a review of it or something, or a comparison or something to that effect. And then I saw all its flaws, and I'm like, oh shit. But I still kind of liked it, so. Yeah,
it's fun in don't think too deeply kind of way. The monsters and the sounds and everything was like the first time you meet those fire babies or whatever.
Oh god, that scream
was like, whoa, it was cool.
That was such a good part. Yeah,
I think that was probably my favorite part of the movie. But yeah, I mean, all in all, the movie was fine. It was fun. I think the game is probably better, but the game is also kind of crazy in its own way. I think Silent Hill 2 is by far the best of the series because it's more relatable, it's more emotional, whereas the first game and the first movie, it has a lot of like cultist mumbo jumbo magic stuff.
Yeah, that can make things kind of tough. Silent Hill 2 is oddly enough more based in reality, I think.
I guess in a way, yeah. It's got a lot of oh god, we cannot go into this stuff because we're not equipped to do it, but like
it the Bardo stuff? Yeah,
and like this, like the cycle of samsara in a way, like especially if you chose the Maria ending. Anyway, we're not going to get into that because holy cow.
But if you are curious, you can't. Who's the guy that does all those videos? Because he did a whole thing about it being a Bardo or something, or was it?
There's a bunch. Actually, you know what?
Search up Bardo or like the in betweens Bardo. Because there's a bunch of different Bardos, but this is only one of them.
When we make our... you can cut this if you want, but when we make our lunch today, I'll put on the Resonant Arc podcast about Silent Hill 2. They're the ones that did the one with Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's definitely a bunch of people out there that analyze this stuff more deeply. Because Silent Hill 2 is just like the perfect kind of game to just think about and talk about.
Yeah, if you enjoy getting into like psychological discussions or philosophy kind of discussions, this is definitely the best one to work with. Especially if you then include Jacob's Ladder, which is a movie. I'll try to remember to put these things all in the description for you.
Yeah, we won't talk about Jacob's Ladder here, but it's a clear inspiration. There's like scenes basically. Well, there's like one scene that's kind of lifted from the Jacob's Ladder, and James himself is basically wearing the same jacket that the main dude in Jacob's Ladder is wearing.
Oh shit, I didn't even make that connection.
Really, it's
Right.
yeah. If you look at a picture of Jacob's ladder, it's like he's wearing that jacket.
I guess that makes sense.
Anyway, wow, that was a long one. I hope you enjoyed our kind of play-by-play. I like the idea of doing a podcast like this every so often, where we just deep dive in a single game and talk about every little bit.
Yeah,
It's
this
fun.
is going to be obviously the Silent Hill 2 master podcasts or...
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Alrighty.
Let's just stop it here for you guys. Thank
Yeah.
you for listening if you're somehow still with us. Leave a review and comments if you happen to like this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys for
And
dealing
we'll-
with us,
yeah.
for hanging out with us.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
See you later.